I just want to go back a couple of slides just so I can introduce you to the structure of this user guide. I'm McCallum. I work closely with Margherita on EntreComp, and we've worked to develop this user guide, which contains a lot of examples of how to implement EntreComp. I'd like to just emphasize a couple of points that Margherita has made. I'm a youth worker by trade, if you like. I come from a world where the most important thing was to provide young people with the confidence they needed to take their own lives and make the most of those lives in difficult circumstances, with difficult family backgrounds and living environments. So this, for me, entrepreneurial skills, an entrepreneurial mindset, is life skills. It's being able to spot your own opportunities, to create value for your own life and in order to live within society. It is being entrepreneurial as a citizen of the world. And this is something that I believe passionately in. And this is where I'm very pleased to look at a framework like EntreComp and see the opportunity it brings for me to create a common language amongst different stakeholders. I was in the EU Industry Day last week next to the CEO of and wait for this, the European textiles, leather and footwear industry. And he was talking about soft skills. There was someone from advanced manufacturing. They were talking about soft skills. There was someone there from Eurofound who focused on society and the needs of society. They were talking about soft skills. And really, when we looked at EntreComp in that session, we found a common language because people can spot what they need to see in it and take it and use it. You never need all of it, as Margherita says. It's that dictionary that you can choose, you look into and you see, okay, let's take this. The user guide is a chance for us to bring together the examples of, so far, how this is being used. And it's only been launched for a year, so these are early stage examples. But I want to point out on this slide that there are, in the guide, we have a vast number of examples. I think 74, 75. It changed last week, so you know. But they go from examples that will help you see how to mobilize, through to something that will see how do you translate that into a different kind of value for a new audience? How do you look at this tool and see where does it fit with the work I'm already doing? How do you use this tool to actually create something new? Design curriculum, design an action, design a program, implement that program. And how do I use this to recognize the competencies, the skills, the mindset that have been developed? How do I recognize the value of the educational experience I have put together? So this is where what happens in this guide is we go through the examples and how they support EntreComp in this way. How have they used EntreComp? They're not traditional case studies in the sense of a comprehensive example of that action. It shows you how they use EntreComp. So if I can skip forward now to slide El Gigante. If I can skip forward to El Gigante. Perfect. So the first one I'd like to explain is Il Gigante. So much nicer in Italian. The EntreComp giant. This is something that was developed by a teacher in Greece who went on a MOOC run by the iLink project, who actually also designed the EntreLearn booklet that has been translated very kindly by Edia Escuola. And this is something that, actually it's like a fun tool, or it can be a serious tool. I could use it with stakeholders, with policymakers, to allow them to see the relevance of EntreComp and the 15 competencies to their own being, to their own job, to their own life. Because in this tool, you draw a picture of a giant and you say, okay, I'm going to put the 15 competencies on the areas of the body that I think relate to that particular competence. Your head might be related to taking the initiative into action. It might be related for you to creativity, vision. It might be that your legs are mobilized, the resources that you need to take yourself forward. This is it. It's a variable that can be measured for you. But in the classroom, you could use this with your students to say, okay, people, let's look at your how are you being entrepreneurial? What skills do you use in your life? Map them onto your body, onto your picture of your giant. And if you use the model in the user guide, it allows you to origami it into a shape. And then you can say, so you've mapped your competencies. Where do you use those competencies? Where do you use creativity in your life? Where do you design value, have ideas, refine those ideas? Where do you take an idea into action? Taking the initiative, planning it, looking at the finances associated. Where do you do this in your life? And also at the end, so you can do that. So a sort of a reflection on current skills, current experience. At the end of an activity that you've run in your classroom, you can say, okay, take out your giant again. What competencies did you use? It's a very simple tool that a teacher designed in Greece to help her remember those competencies and also use them in her classroom. The second example is a much more fundamental example, and I think Margarita has already touched on it. The Greek translation of the EntreComp framework, which is a fairly hefty thing with 53 competence areas, 15 competencies, and beneath that, that progression model from simple to transformative, from working with others to independent thinking and action, with 442 learning outcomes beneath that, which you can delve into as you need to. To translate that into a language that is nothing like English, which it was originally written in, is a complex process. So this example shows the difficulties they went through, how they overcame them, the need to have a translator, but also an entrepreneurial learning, an education specialist in order to understand what this would mean. So it wouldn't translate as a business startup framework, skills framework, but it would translate as that mindset and skills for being entrepreneurial in your life with others, to create value of different types. So that's that creating value through a translation, adapting of the existing framework to a new audience. The next slide, the next example we wanted to share with you is a professional education doctorate for education practitioners. So this is something that's it's being developed in Wales. And it's being developed because Wales are creating a new curriculum. And they want to create a new curriculum that focuses on developing the citizens who have the skills and mindset for the future. And they're trying to transform the curriculum into something that will support this. And they recognize they need education leaders, education professionals who have the understanding of how to take this forward. So this is training those teachers and leaders in order to really implement the reforms. And part of that is both integrating EntreComp and being entrepreneurial in developing that across teaching at all levels, in all subjects, as a transversal competence. Also relating, bringing in authentic learning, bringing in links out to the community, out to business. Both integrating the concepts of that within the training, but also looking at the learning outcomes within the framework and saying what learning outcomes are being achieved by these education leaders in this course. So going both ways, using EntreComp as a concept, as a framework, as a structure for the teachers to understand, and also for the teachers to learn by. The next one is something that's already been shared with you, EntreLearn. And this is through the iLink project, which was a European project led by European SchoolNet, for teachers across Europe. It's an organization that is funded by ministries of education across Europe. And as I say, this has been translated very kindly by agli, which is and it's a fantastic resource. A lovely woman called Cornelia designed and developed this with support from the team in SchoolNet. And it brings, I think, to life both small activities and big activities that a teacher, very much from a teacher perspective, can use in their classroom. So, vision. What can you do to support vision? A very simple tool would be a suggestion box in your school to say, okay, what ideas do you have to make your school better? How can we improve your school for you, the learner, the pupil? And you gather those suggestions, and that's the students, you encourage them to think about this in different ways. And then, quite simply, you can use some of those suggestions to perhaps implement them as a learning experience with the students, as a practical entrepreneurial experience with the students, taking a set of ideas, looking at those ideas, deciding which is the most effective, what can create impact, refining that idea in the sense of craftsmanship that Ed mentioned yesterday, refining, redefining, reviewing, discussing, and then taking that into entrepreneurial action. And this is, a very simple tool that can actually become a more complex activity. There are others in there, then a lot of them focus on reflection, reflecting back on learning, and EntreLearn provides some frameworks to guide you on that and some practical ideas on how to implement that. But it's got activities, small and big, for each area, each competence, those 15 competencies within EntreComp. So highly recommended. And the last one I'd like to flag up is a local project, a European project, but again it's led by Elena Lupi in University of Bologna, and it's called Success. And this is something that, again, it shows that being entrepreneurial is a competence for different situations. It shows that this is about social and civic competencies and linking that to being entrepreneurial. I come very much from a background where citizenship education is very close to my heart. We need to support young people to take their place in society. And right now we need that more than ever. And Success has generated educational resources, teacher handbook, but also some ideas around assessment that can be used practically in the classroom, probably at the higher levels of education and in higher education itself. But it shows that really what we're looking at here, it's a project that focuses on social and civic activities and supporting young people to develop the entrepreneurial competence in association with that social and civic awareness and actions, which I think is key, something very important to emphasize, because when we're looking at a teacher or a school implementing entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurship competence, you're probably doing stuff already that would fit into those 15 competencies. In fact, I can guarantee it. You could look and appraise your own work and see what competencies you're developing. You can enhance that, create new value, put in different activities from perhaps the EntreLearn booklet. You could even transform what you're doing. Bring in, if you're not already, bring in much more comprehensive project-based learning linked to ethical themes, sustainable development themes, themes linked to Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals with the UN. There are things that you can do to adapt your work, or you could take a whole school approach and really revolutionize how you think about developing these skills in the same way that School 21 demonstrated, and how you assess these skills as a whole school approach. But hopefully what we've shown in this guide is that entrepreneurial learning is applicable across different sectors, from primary to secondary, to recruitment in HR, to startup, to incubators, that whole realm. And for a teacher in a school, you have the opportunity to get creative about the activities you do, explore how what you already do applies to EntreComp and those 15 competencies, and see perhaps if there are ideas in there of how you could enhance what you do, transform what you do, and recognize what you do in terms of these competencies. And perhaps next year, when you come back together in what I have to say is a great conference, thank you very much, you can explore and discuss together about the common language that's been created, that we feel that has been created through EntreComp, and how you're finding that common language enables you to talk about your work together and the different competencies you're developing and the impact it's having. So hopefully maybe that's something that can be a development for you as a teacher, you as your school, and also the group that has been created very kindly by ADI School. On that note, I say thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Very much enjoyed being here, and I hope you enjoy the user guide and using EntreComp. Thank you.